Hi guys, my name is Gianna Darling, and if you've never heard of me before, I'm a romance author specializing in angsty, forbidden, taboo romance. These are some of my books that I have beside me. I have written 18 books and published them, some of them with different covers and different editions because I'm fancy like that. And welcome to my YouTube channel. This is my first video, so we're just kind of easing into things, and I wanted to start off with a Q&A because I get lots of questions all the time, a lot of them frequently asked questions. So I thought, what better way to start my YouTube channel than by answering your burning questions. For those of you who know me, I am known for my motorcycle romance series, The Fallen Men. It is about a Canadian motorcycle gang living in the mountains of British Columbia who deal with a lot of forbidden love and a lot of obstacles, rival gangs, political intrigue, violence, kidnapping, all of those kind of dark romance staples. If you've never read one of my books before, I love literature. I'm a huge lit geek, so there's a lot of literary references, mythological references in my books. I'm quite known for some descriptive prose. I like to call it dirty poetry. I want to give a story that makes you believe in soulmates with some intense bedroom scenes, spice as we call it. Yeah, so I will get right into the Q&A. There's a lot questions, so I'll try to get through them pretty quickly. The first question is about my popular series, The Fallen Men, and it's asking what Fallen Men is coming next and how many more will there be in the series. So I get this question all the time, and I've made it known that I have, originally it was 10 planned for the series, and now I have 12. And I reserve the right to change that answer. It will probably be longer instead of shorter because I have the tendency to create new characters, new side characters in my books, and I just fall in love with them. So a couple of examples of side characters that I've fallen in love with, and I know my readers have too, are Wrath, who was introduced in Good Gone Bad. Mute was introduced in Welcome to the Dark Side. There's a lot of characters that get introduced that kind of just have a mark on my soul now, and I would love to eventually, write their book or, I don't know, give them some kind of closure. So there's 12 books planned at the moment, and that doesn't include novellas, which leads to the next question, which is which Fallen Men is coming next. And if you don't know this, I'm kind of a tease, and I love a little mystery, so I never announce who the next book in The Fallen will be about until right before release. So it's kind of a slow roll. We do title reveal, I start giving clues like on my Instagram and my TikTok, maybe my Facebook group, where I give images or quotes and kind of let readers guess, because I think it's really fun to do some detective work, when I read at least, so I love doing that for my readers. So right now I have announced that the next Fallen Men release, which is my next release, is called AT at the moment, some form of acronym for the title. And it's a novella, but I call it a novella because it's a novella for me, because I love to write long books. Realistically, it's like a full-length novel for the average romance novel, which is around 60K to 80K. Some of them are even shorter. And right now AT is just over 60K, so it's still a bit of a novel, but I just fell super in love with the characters, and I have also mentioned that you've met them before, and I will also mention it is a forbidden love story, which is probably not surprising. Most of the books in The Fallen Men are somewhat forbidden. They often feature age gaps, so it's very in keeping with the series already. And I can't wait to share it with you guys. I already have the covers done. There'll be a discreet cover and the man cover. So this novella will be in paperback, which was another question that I got, because I have a few novellas for the series that are not in paperback. Fallen Sun and Fallen King are only ebook. So yeah, we'll have beautiful paperbacks for this one, and I can't wait to announce more soon. I'm going away for a signing in a week, and I don't want to do anything while I'm away, but I'll probably start making more announcements about that novella when I return. So we've got lots to look forward to there. Do I sell signed paperbacks? At the moment I don't, and I live in Canada, for those that don't know, and the Canadian post system is like infamously not very reliable, so I don't like to do signed paperbacks and send them from here. I did one last year and I went to New Orleans where my assistant lives and we did one together, but I don't have any plans right now to do that again. What is my favorite book I've ever written? So that's really tough. That's kind of like asking who your favorite child is. I mean, I don't have children, but I know that that's a very hard task. So for me, it really is the couple that I'm writing in the moment. So the couple that I'm writing right now, they're probably my favorite just because they're so front of mind. I'm spending all my time with them. But I will say that Zeus Garrow from Welcome to the Dark Side and Lulu Lafayette, also from Welcome to the Dark Side, that book really changed my life. It let me be a writer full time, and I was just so shocked by how well that book did at the beginning of my career. So I owe a lot to Zeus and Lulu and Welcome to the Dark Side. It's a top 40 Amazon bestseller. It is my bestseller in general. So I love those two and I'm very grateful for those two, but I wouldn't say that they're necessarily my favorites, but it's the easiest way to give an answer to that question. So I hope it satisfies you. What is the proper reading order for the Lombardi World books? Great question, especially because I'm releasing the last sibling in the Lombardi family, his trilogy, later this year. So to start off, I would highly recommend you start with the Evolution of Sin trilogy, which features Giselle and Sinclair. The first book is called The Affair. It is about an affair, so if that's like a hard limit for you, then skip that one. But I really do encourage you to try it because I love exploring the gray zone in my books, you know, the gray zone between black and white. And I think once you understand something, it's really hard to have a negative emotion about it. And so if you give Giselle and Sinclair a try, I do think that you'll find their romance is really quite something and quite stunning. And the truth is, sometimes you don't find your right person at the right time. Timing is everything. So the Evolution of Sin series with Giselle Lombardi, and then the Enslaved Duet with Cosima Lombardi, which is set in Britain. It's a very dark romance. She is sold to a British earl to repay her father's gambling debts, and he's part of a secret society. There's a lot of mystery and intrigue, and at first he seems like quite a horrible man, but there's a whole reason behind that. So if that sounds intriguing, definitely read that one. And then the last one I would encourage you to read is about Elena Lombardi, and that's a mafia duet called Anti-Heroes in Love, and it features Dante Salvatore, who's one of my most romantic heroes. He's like that guy who would go out of his way to do something lovely for you, but then also kill anyone who ever did you wrong. So that's one of my favorite combinations of heroes. It happens a lot in my books, and Dante is the epitome of that. So those are the three sisters in the Lombardi family that already have books. And the last sibling is Sebastian, who is Cosima's twin, and he gets a MMF Hollywood romance that I have been dying to write since I was 16, which is when I first conceived of this family. And that is coming out later this year. I cannot wait. Honestly, it's probably 3 of my favorite books I've ever written. It's very spicy. I get to dive into Hollywood and filmmaking, which I adore. I love films. And so that was really fun, and I can't wait to share that with you guys. What are my greatest achievements? I mean, what are my greatest achievements? Well, I'm happy that I, graduated university, have a degree, have 2 degrees. I'm proud that I married my high school sweetheart. I mean, we did not, for those of you who don't know, we dated in grade 10, and then we dated for most of high school, and then we broke up and remained really good friends because we had the same best friend group. And then when we were 23, we kind of got back together, and we recently got married last year, and I'm proud of that relationship because we really grew together, which can be really tough, but we made it through. I'm very proud of my writing career. I wanted to be a writer since I was 8 years old. So being a USA Today bestseller, a Wall Street Journal bestseller, top 40 on Amazon, it's just very thrilling. So definitely my career I'm really proud of. There's little things like I was, provincial MVP for my soccer team in high school, and, I went to the Little League World Series when I was younger for softball, and we did the best Canada had ever done. So that's exciting, things like that. But I think that my greatest achievements are really my friends and family. and those like relationships that I've fostered, not to be super cheesy. What draws you to working on multiple projects instead of just one series at a time? Honestly, that's a great question, and I think it's just my artistic spirit wants to have more freedom than just sticking to one series, especially because my series and my worlds that I build tend to be quite involved. Like we have the Lombardi world, which is 3 separate series, 2 duets and a trilogy, and then another trilogy coming up. And then we have the Fallen Men series, which is already 7 full-length novels, including, and then also novellas. So to stay in one lane for me just doesn't feel like I am doing my creative self a service. And I feel like we, just like tears in a muscle, we need to kind of stretch ourselves to grow. And I always try to grow as a writer, and I feel like this is a really good way for me to do it. So yes. How do I decide one of my thousands of ideas to actually start writing the book for? That's also a great question. I have said before, I have what I call creative ADD. I get ideas all the time and get really excited about different projects, and it's been hard to be disciplined to stick to exactly what I need to be writing. I would say I do make allowances if something's speaking really strongly to me. So I wrote my first sports romance this year, and I let myself write that, but I don't actually have time in my schedule to release it for a while. So you kind of just have to be smart as a self-published author and know kind of what your brand is and where you're at with continuing series. Like for example, for me, I want to release something Fallen Men related every year, at least once a year. So, you know, I have that in my schedule. I also have some things coming up that I can't talk about yet that I have to factor into my schedule. So it's practicality tempered by creativity. Usually I have ideas marinating in my brain for years, and it's not like I'm gonna forget them if I don't get to them right away. And I actually like having them marinate, as I call it, for a while, because then when I actually sit down to write, I find it's really seamless. I know the characters really well. I have Pinterest boards for them and playlists for them, so it's quite easy for me to write, and I don't have to do as much prep, if that makes any sense. Someone asked how I got into coaching basketball. So I played basketball in middle school and high school, and then I was asked to come back and coach my old high school team when I was in like 2nd year university, and I think I've done it every year since then, except for maybe 3 years where I was living in Europe and when I was at school in Toronto. But other than that, I've done it since then, and honestly, I just love it. I'm an athlete, which is, if you'd asked me years ago what I would be known for in romance, it would not be like dark romance. It would be sports romance. I would just assume, because I'm an athlete. I play soccer, I golf, I play basketball. I used to play field hockey and softball, and yeah, I'm an athlete. So I just love having that outlet, and I also love mentoring the young girls. It's a really special thing, and I had that when I was younger, and it really changed my life. Having an older woman kind of inspire me and support me. Actually, a highlight this year was a girl said to me, she's really hard on herself, and she said to me, just so you know, you're the positive voice in my head when I'm hard on myself. And for me, like, that's why I coach, because how beautiful is that, and how rewarding is that? And my job is quite solitary as a writer, so I love having the social interaction that goes along with being a coach. Would the children of the Fallen and the children of the Lombardi family get along? Maybe. I think it depends. There's some big personalities on either side, so it would really depend on the pairing. But that could be an interesting thing to revisit one day, potentially. How have characters' plots changed in The Fallen from the original idea? That's a great question, and they actually haven't changed that much. I've had the basic plot, like the villain, the titles for most of the books, you know, because I had 10 and now I have 12 planned, since the beginning, since Lessons in Corruption. You know, I saw a picture of the model Christopher Mason on a motorcycle, and the series just kind of came to me like dominoes falling. I had Zeus Garrow, I had Bat Stevens, I had Buck and Maya, and I just had all of these characters come to me one after the other, and then these stories. So I still have the original note that I wrote with all that information on it. So since then, I've added 2 stories and some side stories, but even those kind of come from an original source. So they haven't changed that much. Really what happens is I have that initial rush of an idea, and then the story deepens. So it grows roots, and I kind of figure out the context of the story, why the characters are the way they are, and that's kind of how my process works versus the story changing wildly. I don't think I've ever really, maybe the only one is the Lombardi family had a much lighter storyline when I was 16 years old and I first thought about the family. Like Cosima was with a soccer player and Elena was with an executive, a Hollywood executive. It was all a very different vibe, which I did change when I revisited it when I was older. And that's the only significant change that I've ever really made. So. Good. That's a really good question though. What is your writing process from getting the idea to deciding to make that book? I think I've kind of touched on that, but I will say that when it is time to write a book, usually, as I said, I already have the playlist, the Pinterest board. I usually have a document or a note on my phone with information that I've gathered over the years, quotes that I like for them, vibes, titles, character names, that sort of thing. And so when it's time to write that book, I have my kind of prep stage where I listen to the playlist nonstop. I look at the Pinterest board a lot. I'll do more pins because I'm super visual, and I'll kind of sit down and loosely plan the plot, and then I'll start writing. And I usually let myself write the first 20% really freeform without any kind of notes on what needs to happen or anything. And then I'll start being a plotter more than a pantster after that. After I get a feel for the characters, and they basically tell me what to do. So that's kind of my writing process. And usually I spend anywhere from 6 to like 18 hours a day writing when I'm deep in my writing mode and I like won't move, and I will be in my bedroom with all the lights off or my office with all the lights off, and my husband will come home and say, gee, did you get off the bed today? You know, did you eat lunch? And a lot of the times I'm like, no, I did not. But that's kind of how I write. So, you know, I wrote Welcome to the Dark Side in 3 weeks. And I've written a lot of books in like a similar time frame because it's really writing all day, every day until that first draft is kind of like purged from me. What is my hidden talent? Je parle en français un peu. En fait, j'habitais à Paris. So I speak French and lived in France for a long time. I have a French family. Maybe that's my hidden talent. I'm a great athlete, not to toot my own horn. But yeah, I'd say that either of those two things are kind of my hidden talents. I can't sing. That's not my hidden talent. It's like my hidden shame. I have no ability to sing. Someone asked, and I've got this before, what my skincare and beauty routine is. If you guys are interested, I will do a whole different video about that. I won't get into that right now. Okay, if you could only read one book for the rest of your life, which one would it be? That is really tough, but it would probably be Pride and Prejudice, just because I read it every year anyway, and I just love it. And I watch the BBC miniseries or the 2005 movie with Keira Knightley and Matthew McFadyen all the time. Like probably once a week I watch one of those. So I think it would have to be Pride and Prejudice. I'm not a huge rereader. I like to explore new territory. So that's the only one that I really reread quite viciously. No question, I just wanted to say I'm such a fan. Thank you. You guys, I mean, you're the ones that make my dreams come true. You're my fairy godmothers, so I really appreciate it. And I hope that you enjoy this new way of interacting. I will definitely be asking you guys what kind of content you want to see on here. I will be taking you to Charleston, to the signing, the Sweetgrass signing, to see the behind the scenes, to see some of my author friends. It'll be really fun. I'm really excited about this. If I could spend the day with one of my characters, who would it be and why? Oh, another fabulous question, and then one that's really hard to answer. I think it would be King Kyle Garrow from Lessons in Corruption, because we're just very kindred spirits. He loves literature, he loves writing. I can just see us, he loves nature. I can see us going for a lovely hike and being inspired by that, and then kind of going and having a cup of tea and being cozy and writing poetry together or reading together, riding on the back of his motorcycle through the trees. I mean, it sounds pretty idyllic. So I think even though it would be really fun to spend the day with a lot of different characters, that would be the most like in keeping with my own lifestyle. Not a question, but I'm dying for an MM book from you. Guys, I love MM. Anyone that knows me knows I mostly read MM romances. I would love to write one. I actually have been writing one on the side as a passion project for a while, so hopefully I will be able to release an MM romance soon. I would love that. Where do I see myself in 10 years? I see myself living in a house with my husband and my dog and our kids. We do want kids. Maybe a cat, maybe another dog. I love animals. And I see myself writing. I don't see like a ton of massive changes in my life, hopefully. except for the kids part, which will be a massive change because right now it's just, I'm footloose and fancy free. So that's probably the major thing. Who would I marry among the men I've written so far? Probably Dante Salvatore from Antiheroes in Love. The one that I said would do incredibly romantic things for you, but also kill anyone that looked at you wrong. I just love that combination. I mean, I'm not sure how it would work in real life. Probably he'd get in lots of trouble, but he's so charming and magnetic, and I feel like life would never be boring with him. And he's stunning, so gorgeous. I would love to just spend my life looking at him. So probably Dante. Who are some characters of mine who I was surprised to find that readers really liked? That is a great question. Elena Lombardi from the Antiheroes in Love duet was a villain in the Evolution of Sin trilogy, which was the first trilogy that I wrote. And people hated her and they were like, I never want to read about her ever. So I was like, oh, people might not like her. And then add on to the fact that she's not your typical sunshiny, sweet, innocent heroine. She's really strong and she has a lot of trauma, so she's quite cold and closed off and sharp-tongued. But people really identified with her and her struggles, her trauma, her infertility issues, her PCOS, the fact that she was like a strong, independent woman who needed a really strong man. Yeah, people loved her. People ride or die for her so much that they don't want to read the first book in the trilogy because she was the villain, and they don't want to see her be, you know, not very nice. Which I wish that they would, because I think it makes Elena even more beautiful that she had such growth. She went from being really lashing out and being an angry, kind of bitter person because of her trauma to really healing from that and learning from it and becoming such an interesting, more empathetic, but still strong-willed woman. So I actually really like the dichotomy there, and I encourage people to read the whole series, but I think it is easier if you read about her as a villain before you read about her as the heroine. How many books do I read for pleasure a year and not for book research? A ton. I read every day. So I probably read, I don't actually count or keep track on Goodreads or anything, but I read hundreds of books a year, easily. I usually read at least a book a week. I'm a huge reader. I think most writers are, or maybe dare I say should be, because you know, you need to fill your creative well. And there's lots of ways to do that outside of reading, but I think reading is a really important one as well. I think this is the last question that I will answer, and that is any new books that you can hint about. So yes, obviously next up is A.T., the Fallen Men novella, which I will tell you more information about when I get back from my trip. And then there's Sebastian's trilogy, which is going to be so much fun. I actually just got some art for it back today, and I honestly got tears in my eyes because it was so beautiful and perfect. I cannot wait. I will be sending out boxes for the trilogy release, so if you haven't seen on my Instagram and my Facebook, I actually just opened a content creator team. If you're a content creator and you're interested, fill out the form. You don't need like a minimum number of followers, just if you like to create content and hopefully you like my words, you can apply. So I'm super excited about those two projects, and right now I'm working on something I can't talk that much about, but I will say that the hero is one of those ones that I love that's super romantic, but also would kill a man without question if he wronged his woman, which I love. And it's set, I love setting my books in different locales. I'm a huge traveler, and so I love using that in my stories. And I will say this is not predominantly set in the US. And I'm really excited about that too, because the vibes are so strong and so much fun. And I will be able to tell you more about it soon. And then the last thing I'll say is I have announced kind of casually that I am going to write a Mafia spin-off series for the Antiheroes in Love duet. And that will come next year. And I'm really, really excited about it. Anyway, thank you so much for hanging out with me, you guys. I hope that I'll see you next Sunday for another addition to my YouTube channel. And I hope you enjoyed my first video. Thanks.